Welcome to the second episode of the Stygion and Stanley podcast. In today's episode, we're going to pay tribute to David Lynch by discussing two of his movies that are some of our favorites. And the first movie we're going to be talking about is Lost Highway, and then we're going to follow that up with Blue Velvet. I recently rewatched Lost Highway the other day, and starting with the opening, I think it has one of the best openings with Dick Laurent is dead.
Yeah.
Just the moody setup of the lighting and the close-ups.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What I thought you were going to say, it has one of the best soundtracks, and
oh, for sure,
really good soundtrack to that. I played a lot of that soundtrack in the club. Like that was like a kind of a go-to. Like I had a bunch of soundtracks specifically that were really good, and that one was like every song was really well chosen and well done with that movie. But yeah, that opening, just super simple, right? Dick Laurent is dead.
That CD pretty much stays in my car to Lost Highway. I think Trent Reznor supervised the soundtrack. Like he picked a lot of the music and he made some original pieces.
That sounds about right. And I think he had a lot to do with the Underworld soundtrack also, which I consider that to be the best soundtrack since I've been alive, for a movie anyway.
Underworld, the one with Kate Beckinsale?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That soundtrack is amazing. And a lot of similar artists and songs on both of those albums, on the Lost Highway and on the Underworld soundtrack. So
I think, isn't Pussifer on that soundtrack?
Yep.
Yeah.
And a Trent Reznor mix, and David Bowie being like the on there is good. Yeah, that the movie had it's almost like they filmed scenes around the song selection. I don't know if anyone did that. If anyone did, it could have been Lynch, because it's almost like he thought, oh, this song would be really cool, and like altered the scene so the song fit perfect. I don't know if that's accurate, but it seemed like that almost.
Especially like later in the middle of the movie when Patricia Arquette gets out of the car, and then this magic moment, that's.
Yeah, it was really well done, the music with that movie, and I don't think the movie would have been nearly as good without the music that they selected, like as impactful. I don't know how to word it.
It's definitely one of the best soundtracks.
When I think about that movie, and in the past when I've tried to, they're like, oh, tell me what Lost Highway is about. I just kind of freeze up because I'm like, I don't know what it's about. It's about this guy who's another guy. They might be the same guy. The devil might be there. And I just watching it even the other day, I thought, there's no way I could explain this movie to someone properly.
I have some theories, and then I kind of dug into some of the things like David Lynch has said. So he said he was heavily inspired by the O.J. Simpson case and the idea. So that kind of tells me, I think Bill Pullman, who looks very young in this movie, I don't remember him looking this dark and brooding in a movie except for this one, but that makes me think for sure that he killed his wife at the beginning of the movie, and then the rest is maybe happening in his mind. David Lynch used a word or a term, psychogenic fugue, when your mind can kind of shift. So that kind of explains things a little bit to me.
The headaches and I mean, honestly, one of the things that I thought at some point after, I used to watch that movie a lot when in the early 2000s. I watched that movie several times.
Yeah.
Most of the time on drugs, hallucinogens specifically. And I had a theory at one point that, was the name Paul Blake or Peter Blake?
Oh, Robert Blake.
Robert Blake. Robert.
Yeah.
He's the guy that actually ended up murdering his wife, right?
Yeah.
Fucking crazy. I had a theory that guy was the devil. In that
Yeah.
there was like a soul selling at some point. Like when he said, "Call me." The act of calling him on the phone was like selling his soul. And then, then he owed him, and he almost became like his right-hand guy at the end. That was my theory anyway, that doing that, calling the phone and talking to him, that was like a contract that he didn't realize he entered.
I watched a video with Robert Blake recently. It was like a 1-minute video, and they were asking him about Lost Highway to explain it. And he says, "I don't know what the movie's about, but I'm pretty sure I play the devil." But
that's cool.
That party scene, I think that is the best scene in the movie for me, and one of David Lynch's top scenes. Like kind of how everything just kind of slows down and gets quiet when Robert Blake steps up for that phone call.
You know what I thought when I rewatched it? I was thinking how creepy Robert Blake was, but then I thought older Paul Rubens could have played that role and delivered it probably just as well. He played like the Penguin's father in some series, I think, on TV, and he was really good in that. But he kind of, older Paul Rubens kind of looked like Robert Blake.
Yeah,
so
that would have worked.
Hopefully that's not like insulting, but yeah, he kind of like. But I don't think I've ever seen Robert Blake in anything else. That nothing that would stand out in my mind anyway.
Same. I looked at his filmography though. Man, he was in like a ton of movies, like 50 movies, maybe more.
No role that's like that. And it was hard for me to watch. It's always hard for me to watch Bill Pullman, because all I can see is Spaceballs. Like,
yeah,
I'm like, oh, that's Lone Star, and it's no matter how much I got into that movie and the scenes are really intense. Like my brain kept going, oh, if that guy puts on a leather jacket, he's fucking Lone Star. And it was pulling me out of it just a little bit.
And he was in all those romantic comedies too, like back then in the 90s. And
yeah. Yeah, that movie is definitely like a whole fucking mood. It's like certain songs or certain, I guess even smells can take you to an exact point in time in your life, and that movie definitely does. That movie's just like immediately takes me to like the early 2000s, and very, very drug fueled, alcohol, late nights, like all night, staying up all night and sleeping all day kind of feeling to it. I guess people who never worked in that kind of industry don't understand like the waking dream, like when you are so tired and you just feel like you're in a dream, like things aren't affecting you the way they should, and it's almost like hallucinating even if you're not on drugs. Like the mornings, right? Like especially if you get off your shift at 6 a.m. and you go home, you're racing the sun, you're trying to get home before the sun just fucking blasts you, and then you have shit to do before you can go to sleep. That was the worst.
Yeah.
And that movie feels almost like a fever dream. Like, I don't know, like very surreal. Every bit of it feels surreal. There's not a single point in that movie except maybe the very first time you see, I guess, him or Patricia Arquette walk outside and like pick up the mail. That is the only point in that movie where it just felt like, oh, this is just a normal day, movie. But and I don't know cinematography at all, but like all of the interior moments of that movie did not feel like you were watching a movie. It felt like you were in a closet peeking out through a peephole that people didn't know you were there. Like you weren't supposed to be there. And like from the very extreme close-ups to like conversations, and then the person would get up and walk out of frame and you're still like, it's like you're in a closet, like peeking through a little hole. And I think that helped set up how uneasy everything was.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's intentional. I just don't know if there's like a name for it or but even the scenes when they're outside, it felt like you were hiding, like, right? Like you're sitting in a car somewhere and they didn't do like the camera walking with somebody.
Yeah.
All the scenes felt like you were hiding and you shouldn't be there.
Like very voyeuristic.
Exactly. And I think that's what gave a lot of the uneasy feeling to it. The camera, the videotapes, with their house being recorded.
Yeah.
It's like,
those are super creepy.
How fucking awful would that be if that happened to you? Like VHS tape or disc or a flash drive, if someone left a video of a camera, recording in your house and then left it for you, like that is fucking.
Because you're so like vulnerable when you're asleep. Yeah.
And like someone in your house, it's like the ultimate chink in your armor, right? Like they were inside, they were in your house, like, and then you're just like, everything you're looking at is like, shit, what got taken, what got touched, did they leave, are they still here? Like your I don't know, it's like your illusion of safety is gone.
I definitely agree with you on it's one of the few movies that I feel was very dreamlike or like a nightmare. Like this is what a dream feels like. And it's hard to pull off, but he definitely pulled it off.
Yeah, and then the way movies will just completely switch, or not movies, sorry, dreams, right? You're having a dream and all of a sudden, the dream is completely different location, different people, but some things look familiar. And yeah, I got to think that he had to have been inspired by that, right? Like by just kind of delirious dreams. And I know it's technically neither of those movies are horror movies, but I don't think anyone could sit and watch those movies in the dark at home by themselves, and then when the movie shuts off, they're just going to be like, "Oh yeah, I feel great." Like,
yeah,
you're going to feel like, fuck. Especially man. I'm like someone seeing that for the first time. I kind of envy that, right? Because the first time I saw that movie, I just sat there staring at the screen when it was over, just wondering what in the fuck I just watched.
Yeah.
So I envy anyone who, gets to watch that for the first time, as going into it kind of, blind.
It has some of my favorite shots too. Back to the cinematography, like the shot of Bill Pullman when he goes down the hallway, then he comes back out of the darkness. It reminded me of a shot that's in Blue Velvet, which we'll talk about later with Laura Dern. It's like, man, like I got to research how they like pull that off, where it's just dark enough where you can't see anything at the end of the frame.
Yeah, it's got to be just like very light absorbing material in the back, and then a spotlight almost facing towards the camera, right? Like he has to walk into the light. Yeah, that's a really cool effect. The really extreme close-ups too, to their faces when they're having conversations.
Yeah.
That don't move, and they're almost uncomfortably close, but the actor has to like just act like there's not a camera, sitting really close to his face or zoomed in really close to his face. And I almost wonder, did he edit the actual video after he recorded it to like crop it even more, or did he do something with I don't know, like a box or something around the lens to do that?
I know what you're talking about. There's a great shot of Patricia Arquette's lips, and then I remember, I don't know if you've seen The Substance yet, but there's definitely some homages in that movie that made me think of David Lynch. It's like, oh, that's David Lynch right there.
There was some episodes of X-Files that used for sure camera techniques, and I'm like, holy shit, these people are just like, giving hand jobs to David Lynch. But he was a character on that show, David Lynch was, and then they had many actors shared between that show and his movie. So I feel like that was not unintentional. Like they knew.
Twin Peaks, yeah.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing.
One of the creepiest moments in the beginning of the movie is like when Patricia Arquette pats him on the back. Like I've never seen a pat on the back seem so creepy. After they have sex.
Oh yeah. Oh, when I don't know if he like, did he pre-ejaculate or what is it called? Premature ejaculate? I don't know if he did that or if he just couldn't finish. I don't know exactly how it
I think
happened,
he finished, and then she's like,
but
it's okay.
It's okay. And then I think she said you did good, right?
I don't remember
something along those lines. But like having someone pat you and say it's okay, like I was trying to put myself in that situation. I was like, oh, that's the worst fucking thing someone can say to you.
You can see in his face, Bill Pullman, like it definitely triggered him or upset him.
Yeah, if your wife or your girlfriend, like you get done like doing whatever and she's like, it's okay, and patted you, like, oh man, just absolute fucking, just your ego, everything just crushed, right? Yeah, all the interactions between them, like I know they're supposed to be married, but the interactions with them almost felt like the first time you invite your girlfriend to stay over, or the first time you guys sleep together, and it's like everything's just a little awkward, because there's a lot of feeling out. Every conversation they had, especially when they were being close, and like it all seemed like that, like they had never met. And I don't know if that's just like good acting or if maybe he kept them, because I know some directors go to extremes to get genuine reactions. So I almost wonder if like they had never even been in the same room to read together.
The dialogue delivery is definitely very unique. I guess Lynchian too. Like that's something I noticed.
He writes some awkward dialogue for sure.
Yeah. Okay. It's not just me. It's a little awkward.
Oh yeah. And I feel like he does that on purpose. It's like he's trying to create tension in every single scene of every single movie he's made. Like, and it's not even the same tension. It's not like, oh no, something's going to happen here. It'll clip away into something completely different. And we're like, wait, why are they talking like that? And then next scene, before you have time to even digest it. And so it's just like layers of being awkward. The whole thing is very awkward. And I feel like that had to have been by design.
Yeah.
And that's why I would, even though they're not listed or classified as horror movies, several of his films like are definitely like should be.
They have horror elements.
Yeah, for sure. There are scenes in some of his movies that are way scarier than, some slasher with a knife.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, they built up this scene so well. And then occasionally you feel like there's going to be like a payoff on a scene and then nothing. He just leaves it. And I appreciate that. He doesn't tie up the endings with a bow and
I like that too. Like it's a little ambiguous and open to kind of what you think about it.
Yeah.
Apparently, so this movie was the last movie for two actors, Richard Pryor and Jack Nance, who played Eraserhead.
Yeah.
And then also Michael Massey is in it, who was the guy who accidentally shot and killed Brandon Lee. He's the guy at the party, I forgot his character's name in the movie. But he's the one that they rob at the end and dies when he falls on that table, which is one of the brutal deaths. Yeah.
Yeah. I had forgotten that Richard Pryor was in it until I rewatched it the other day.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see Richard Pryor, but also just a little bit of a bummer, like to see his physical state.
Yeah.
Just
deteriorated.
Yeah, just kind of like Richard Pryor him and Gene Wilder together are like some of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little, kind of a bummer when you see it, but it's cool because I had completely forgotten that he was in it at all. So there's a lot of actors in that movie that are almost like, but none of them have big roles. Like even Richard Pryor, it's like
Henry Rollins, he's in it.
Yeah,
for a little
Henry
bit.
Rollins. Yeah,
He delivers that great joke about and that wife killer's having a real hard time, and the other guy's like, "Which one?"
yeah. And then that weird laughter. Yeah, Henry Rollins is kind of perfect for that scene, that character, right? Especially
Yeah.
with his limited acting chops, where he basically just acts like himself when he's he's in a movie.
Michael Massey, I always felt bad for because he's, I guess, a character actor who passed away, and like even when he passed away, like all the articles was just bringing up the Brandon Lee thing, and that must have like really haunted him like his whole life.
Yeah, I mean it had to, right? Um,
And I don't think it's his fault at all. There's just bad set supervision that day.
I mean, it for sure isn't his fault, but as you well know, when you're trained to use any gun or handgun, the first thing you do if someone hands you a gun is you check it. You
Yeah.
make sure if it's loaded or not, you check everything. And maybe they don't require that for actors, but I feel like if I was in a movie and playing a part where I needed a gun, if someone handed me a gun, even if they said, "Hey, this is a prop gun, it's not loaded, there's no," I would check it anyway. Just
Yeah.
maybe force a habit. So I don't think he's like, a villain, but I don't think that he's completely blameless either. And maybe he knows that. Maybe that's why he,
kind of haunted him. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, even if it was an accident, if you accidentally, even if you killed someone like legitimately, like that's got to be a burden on you, right?
Yeah. One of the things that I've always noticed about David Lynch movies is, especially even starting with Eraserhead, he has some of the best sound design, sound mixing of like any movies. Like they should really be listened to with headphones on.
Oh yeah, like the ambient sounds and things that are going on, and a lot of almost like ASMR, right?
Yeah.
Like it's everything. Again, it all feels very intimate. Like you're so close to what's happening, and like voyeuristic. That's a a way I'll try to explain it to people, in the future. Like what are his movies like? And that's what it is. It feels like you're an unnamed extra in the film or a fly on the wall. Like you're there. You're in, like, peeking at shit you shouldn't be peeking at, and just kind of like right in the middle of everything. The sound it helps with that, right? Because you can hear like guns cocking, you hear like the dripping from like the horizontal lobotomy that guy got.
Oh yeah. Especially when you talk about movies being voyeuristic, definitely Blue Velvet is like that, especially with like the closet scenes.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I don't know if we should be here, like in this room watching this.
Exactly. I was hanging out with a girl that was way younger than me. She was 18 and and we weren't dating. I was trying not to go that route because she was 18 and I was way older. I was 29. And we started watching Lost Highway, and I hadn't seen it in a long time at that point. So, and then that scene happened with the in front of the headlights, the whole sex scene. And as soon as that started happening, I was like, "Fuck!" I didn't even think about that, and I was trying not to, like, She picked the movie out, and I was like, "Okay, there's nothing in that movie that would." I was trying not to like have any, I wasn't trying to give any signals or trying to give any suggestions to that girl. But yeah, that scene was, it gave me like, I was like, oh, fuck. And then she started trying to like, get closer, and I was like, oh, fuck, this isn't going to go well. So that movie also brings, like, I remember that time, like, and almost feeling dread, like, oh, damn. Like, I didn't want this to happen in this movie. But
I think the first time I saw it, I was 17, and I guess it came out in 97 or 96, 97. But I somehow ended up with a bootleg copy of it, and because like I don't think I was living in Hawaii at the time, and I don't think it ever came to theaters. And a friend of mine had sent me a copy, but so I had watched like a cam version of it, and that was my introduction to David Lynch. And then I just started to slowly accumulate his other movies. What was your first introduction to David Lynch, or finding David Lynch?
I saw Eraserhead when I was maybe in high school. There used to be a channel on TV if you had a bootleg cable box, which we might have. And it showed just really late night movies back to back to back to back, but they were all like independent films and really strange shit. To this day, one of the weirdest films I ever saw was on that. But that's where I think I saw Eraserhead on there. And I was just kind of sitting in my room and I was probably smoking cannabis. And I remember watching it and then just feeling like, what the fuck did I just watch? Like I usually did when I'd watch those late night independent films.
Yeah.
And it never even registered. I wasn't one of those people that tried to, oh, who's the director? Who's this guy? Like, it didn't even occur to me. And then I remember Lost Highway in high school, but mainly because a lot of people had the soundtrack.
Yeah.
And like the Marilyn Manson kids would come up and like, oh, you like rock music, right? Like, check this out. And I wasn't like, I really disliked Marilyn Manson when I was in high school, not for anything he did at the time, right? But just because I hated people telling me that they knew what I would like.
Oh, yeah.
The little Marilyn Manson kids pissed me off. So I knew of the soundtrack, but I never listened to it. I never like picked it up really. And then I saw the movie Lost Highway for the first time, I think probably in 2000, maybe 99 or 2000. I think I was living in Austin, and I lots of drugs in Austin. So the time I think I lived in Austin for 2 years, and it seemed like, if I try to think back on it now, it seems like I lived there for a week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like the same thing happened every night. I would take a bunch of drugs and drink some alcohol, and I would go sit at a job of my friends, and just everything was weird and very. It seems like if I watch it back, it's almost like it's playing at high speed.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's when I watched that movie the first time, and the whole theme of that movie fits perfectly with what was going on, I guess, in my life. So.
In your life.
So when I watched it, like you sometimes watch a movie and you feel like, man, this movie is like, I watched it at the perfect time, right? Because you kind of relate to whatever's going on. I feel like I watched that movie like at the perfect time. And it was just everything that was going on in my life at that point. It not like it fit with the theme, but it felt very comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I know all of this feeling that he's going through. Being in a club all night, calling home and trying to get a hold of somebody. And I don't know that movie is going to give the same impact to like younger kids anymore.
Yeah.
Because the scariest scene is call me at home. Nobody has a phone at home anymore.
No, not anymore.
Right. And like
landline. Yeah.
Yeah. And like someone walking through your house recording is not nearly as creepy anymore because there's drones. Everyone's got a camcorder on their phone now.
Everyone's got a Ring camera on their door. Yeah.
Exactly, right. Their security system that they were not using because it kept going off. Like I don't think it's going to have the same impact, unfortunately, for kids who have never used a landline. But
I always love that line. Before I forget, is the one he says how Bill Pullman likes to remember things the way he remembers them, not necessarily how they happen.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's one of the best lines that Lynch ever came up with, which kind of explains part of the movie.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing that I feel like that I don't take a lot of pictures. Sometimes I regret it. I'm like, oh, I should have taken pictures of this or this. There's points in my life where like, oh, I wish I had photographs of that time period. And I don't, because photographs were never something I wanted to have, because sometimes they're bad. You're like, oh yeah, I remember this thing was really cool. And you see a picture of it and you're like, ooh, that was not cool. Maybe I wasn't dressed as cool as I thought I was, with my sleeveless Mr. T t-shirt and my fucking socks pulled up to my knees. Right? like, oh yeah, I used to dress awesome when I was a kid. And then you go back and look and you're like, ooh, okay, maybe not.
Or if you had like a bad experience in the past, you could choose to like remember it a different way.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic. Is revising your story, unless you go to therapy and your therapist is constantly trying to fucking dig up shit, childhood traumas. So that's obnoxious. If not that I'm necessarily in therapy, but if I was, that would probably be an obnoxious thing that happens.
Yeah. And then one of the other lines in the movie is when Patricia Arquette, at the end of the movie, when she's with Balthazar Getty, I think it's right before Bill Pullman comes back in the body, and he's saying they're making love out in the desert, and he says, "I want you," or "I love you," or something, and she's like, "You'll never have me."
Yeah,
that's very haunting.
He says, "I want you." I think he says it a few times.
Yeah,
and then she says, "You'll never have me."
That's right.
That scene is like, it always feels like, for multiple reasons, that whole sequence is kind of feels like a stab in the gut, like someone, and I feel like when I watch it, I'm like, fuck, do they know what happened? Like, there was a girl I dated at one point that was just not really dated, just it was like a tryst or something, I don't know, but turns out she was married, and it was you know who I'm talking about. God, it was such a stressful, unnecessarily stressful time. But that's what it was. It was like this like back and forth. Like, oh, do you want me? Yes. No, you can't have me. And then like, fine. And then like, no, please. Like, come back. And it was so unnecessarily stressful and just confusing. And that whole like sequence, right? Where like when he first sees the picture of her and he's like, is this you? Are they both you? Like, just utter confusion from like that point on. He doesn't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And you can kind of feel like the manipulation there. When all of a sudden, out of the blue, she's got this fucking plan, right? Like, oh, no offense. Like, how, you just happen to know offense? You didn't bring that up before. And I've been in a few situations like that, because of the industry we worked in, which is very similar to the industry that she was in, right? Like, she was doing like porn films and things. So a sexually oriented business is, I don't think you ever get full truth from anybody, right? You get about 50 if you're lucky. That's why someone like Bob, kind of stuck out because he was of someone who was a boss or someone in charge of that industry, right? He was like 100% honest with me anyway. Never bullshitted, and so that he stuck out because of that. But yeah, that being in that industry, I think, gives you and I a unique perspective on
stuff. Yeah.
On those scenes, right? As after the switch, when he's no longer Pullman, he's the other guy. So that whole scene, though, like the manipulation, the subterfuge, the all of that, like it got real stressful. Like that's the feeling I was having watching it from that point, is like, oh shit, it's just one more thing. Oh shit, it's one more thing. And then the switchback was very confusing, and they never explained the two of her. I don't think they
No.
ever addressed why there was two. Although I think when the police were there was not two of her, right? It was just one.
I wonder if he was inspired by Hitchcock's Vertigo, in that movie where she's just blonde in the beginning, and then when he sees her later on, Jimmy Stewart, I forgot her. I haven't seen that movie in forever, but she's a brunette.
I'm sure he was a fan of Hitchcock's work.
Yeah.
Especially the lighting and the framing they used in Eraserhead, right? Like he had to have been a fan of Hitchcock. Although I think he's probably better than Hitchcock was. Just his storytelling and everything. I think he kind of, what do they say? They stand on the shoulders of those who came before you.
It's kind of how I feel about Brian De Palma, who everyone said was always ripping off Hitchcock. But it's like I genuinely enjoy his movies more, like Dressed to Kill and like Blowout. Like I don't know, Psycho is pretty hard to beat, but like those movies are better than most Hitchcock movies, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. It's everyone wants to, cling to their favorite thing and be like, oh, this was the best because it was first. But that doesn't make something better just because it came before.
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't know where Lost Highway ranks for you, but I think it's my like personal favorite. Not necessarily his best, just my favorite. Just because I think it was the first one I saw, and then I just really connect. I really connect with just the mood and just mainly the mood.
I would say it's not my personal favorite, but I would say it's his best. Like if without my personal opinions on it, if someone said what's the best Lynch movie, I would definitely say
Lost Highway.
Lost Highway. For sure. Like I don't even think it's close to me. Like it's really good.
And which one is your favorite?
Probably Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, that one's up there for sure.
And I think that might be his second best movie all around, but that one is probably my favorite. Just because the whole feeling of that movie, the same thing, and then like it's again the time period that I watched it. And the movie's really fucked up.
Yeah.
Like it's really got some strange scenes in it that kind of leave you.
That diner scene.
Yeah. With the homeless guy.
Yes, that's definitely one of his top scenes.
Like, and again, like, oh, and you try to explain that to someone, right? Like, oh, they're in the diner and this guy's telling his boyfriend his dream, and he's walking around this, maybe the dumpster of the building, and this homeless guy pops out. And I was like, it's scary as fuck, but it doesn't sound scary when you describe it.
No.
But when you're watching that movie, like, Jesus Christ.
That's like the perfect jump scare scene. Like that's how you do a jump scare. Like in broad daylight.
I almost wonder if he intended for that scene to be that fucking shocking, like that startling moment, right? It sucks because, you can't go ask him. Not like he would talk to any of us anyway, but it's very, very, I don't know, subtly scary, but very like startling. And it's one of those jump scares where it's not. I don't think it's expected. I didn't expect it for sure.
No.
And it's just kind of in the middle of the movie with characters that are not even relevant to the ultimate plot line of it. It's so every aspect of it was just like misdirection, right?
Yeah.
Smoke and mirrors, and then that. So
There's definitely been like an outpouring of like love and respect since he passed. Like, I've seen it. Like sometimes, they'll say like a filmmaker passed away, and like you'll forget about it in a couple of days. But man, people have really been pouring out a lot of like tributes and stuff.
yeah, I think also a lot of people are maybe just watching his movies for the first time, whether they admit to it or not. Because his movies they're kind of difficult to like.
Yeah.
You got to be in a kind of a mood to watch his movies because it's not a happy movie. These aren't movies that like you're gonna watch at a barbecue with a bunch of friends and everyone's having a good time. Yeah, like these aren't movies that are like happy, like, oh yeah, that's a great movie. It's not like you're watching, some rom-com or a lighthearted action comedy. These movies are intense and like they're very remarkable. They leave like a whole feeling. They'll change your entire mood.
Yeah.
If you watch any of his movies.
I guess the closest he came was The Straight Story. I guess to a more even that movie though, like I watched last year for the first time because it was actually just hard to find a copy of that movie. And then one day I looked up on Amazon. There was like a used copy for like $5, I guess. But that movie's pretty affecting for like how simple it is. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The I guess all of his movies seem like they're not very high budget. He doesn't have explosions. He doesn't have like a lot of anything, right?
Yeah.
Like, and again, cameras way better than I do. I don't even know if he has like extensive, giant high dollar cameras. Everything is filmed so intimately, and just everything feels very precise, and everything feels very intentional.
Yeah.
Like it's like he's in control of every little nuance, from the tactile sounds, the lighting, like he's just controlling every single thing. There's no like, oh, happenstance,
It's kind of sad he only made 10 movies, and like I think the last one was like 20 years ago. Like I wish he had made more, but I guess those 10 are enough, plus all the Twin Peaks stuff.
Yeah, Twin Peaks is almost like he was testing out everything he was gonna put in a movie later. Like all the scenes that he filmed, he was like, oh, let's see how this works.
Yeah.
Right, because it was like his playground or his practice, right? So he's practicing like, oh, let's see if this is creepy. Let's see if this plays. Let's see if this really close-up scene is weird, and the exchanges of dialogue. Let's see if these really dry, awkward changes work.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that's what he did. And he like put it in his different movies. You can see like little bits. It's like if you knew back then, like watching some of his stuff, you could say, oh yeah, he was practicing.
Yeah.
So, I wonder if he had anything unfinished, right? Like if he had something planned and just never got to it.
I know there was like some scripts, like he wanted to make something on Marilyn Monroe at one point, and then some script called Ronnie Rocket. So there was definitely like a few that I had read about over the years, and like I know he never made them. And one other point is that which will lead into the next movie, is he didn't have final cut on Dune, and he hated the final product because I guess they chopped it up. So after that movie, he's like, I have final cut on all of my movies, starting with Blue Velvet. And do you want to lead into that one?
Oh yeah, that works. So Blue Velvet is another movie I saw, and it kind of stuck with me because of the time period I watched it for the first time, which was again, but somewhere 2003 to 2006 ish. And same thing, the music, like perfect choices of music for the different scenes, especially. I don't know that I've ever seen a Blue Velvet soundtrack. I mean, I'm sure there is one, but like the music is really well done. And that movie feels very similar to me to Lost Highway, right?
Yeah.
The base premise of the guy being with a girl, and then even though he doesn't change personas, then there's another girl that he's with that is a dangerous choice, and after Pullman changes in Lost Highway, that's what goes on. He has this girlfriend, but this other girl is dangerous and he chooses to be with her. And obviously
the femme fatale.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the same kind of storyline that goes on in Blue Velvet. And I remember reading about Blue Velvet in some magazine a long time ago about Isabella Rossellini and how all of her people told her, like, if you make this movie, your career's over. Like, you are going to ruin your career if you make this film. And she did it anyway. And obviously it didn't ruin her career, but
no.
It's very, again, awkward. Like her character, and I'm sure it was intentional, but she just seemed like so out of place with the rest of the players in that movie. I love Dennis Hopper in that film. He is such a fucking lunatic. And I used to play clips of him from that movie. I had all these audio clips when I was, running the show at the club, and I played clips all the time. I just in with the music. I just throw it in there. Anytime I saw someone with Heineken, I'd play that clip so loud, and I don't know that anyone ever knew what it was from, but it was entertaining to me. And the let's fuck, I'll fuck anything that moves. I used to play that a lot. Inappropriately or not. Just that movie just has
so many great lines. Yeah.
He's such a fucking weirdo. Like, he's such a creep. He's more of a creep than what's his name? I can't think of the guy's name from Lost Highway.
Oh, Robert Blake?
Not Robert Blake. The other guy.
Oh, Robert Loggia?
Loggia, right.
Mr. Eddie? Yeah.
Great character, right? And I almost wish that we could, like, someone could use some AI technology. Imagine those two characters.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like just a scene with those two characters, because they're similar, both like volatile and just kind of nuts. But yeah, I guess Blue Velvet from the very beginning seemed like that guy's whole fucking existence derailed really quickly.
Oh yeah.
Like they didn't wait, right? He sees his dad's all fucked up. And then you're like, oh, and then I think right after that he walks through a field and finds the ear.
Yeah.
And you're just like, Jesus Christ. And from that point, like, he picks up the ear and puts it in like the fucking trash that he finds on the ground. He's just not making good decisions from step one, right? And then it never gets better. All of his decisions get worse and worse and worse. And that all the way up until the very end, there's no part of that movie that ever feels like it's like a roller coaster, right? Except that roller coaster never slowed down or went back up. It was just like a drop from that point. As soon as he touched that ear, it was just like, wee, and it never like got not weird.
It's like, yeah, he just went into I guess, the underbelly at that point.
Yeah. The scene where he brings the ear to the cop and the cop's like, oh yeah, like let's go give this to the crime lab. And he doesn't know, this kid walks in off the street with an ear in a bag and he's just like, yeah, no problem. Let's go and talk to some people about it. And it was just so weird. And I guess we're supposed to believe that Laura Dern is that her name?
Yeah.
We're supposed to believe she was in high school. She looked like she was 37. Like he's supposed to be just out of high school.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that was odd, is like these people
They look much older.
Old. Like, yeah.
And I see that a lot in movies. Like,
yeah, I guess it's targeted towards people who are our age, who maybe they think forgot what people looked like when we were in high school. But yeah, it's odd, I guess, to see it, but it kind of fits because the whole thing again just feels like a fever dream. Like the dialogue and the things that are happening, we're like, why is this stuff so weird? And all of the dialogue in that is very much, like if you didn't know it was Lynch, you could pick it out real quick.
Yeah.
As soon as you see some of the dialogue. Just the whole like oxygen dry humping baby wants to fuck scene, like
I thought that was helium at first, like when I rewatched it, and I was like, I wonder why his voice like never changed, like got high pitched, but I read that it was amyl nitrate, which enhances like the sexual experience, for some people. So that, I guess that explained it. And I'm glad that it wasn't helium, and he sounded funny, because then that might have pulled you out of the scenes a little bit.
Yeah. That scene though, like where he's crying and saying like baby wants to fuck and then smacking her and don't look at me and all that, I was like, Jesus Christ, man. And then he doesn't even like, there's no actual sexual intercourse. He just like dry humps her while he's having a fucking convulsion.
Yeah, I was watching it. It's like, I don't think he ever unzipped his pants. I was like, He just dry humped her.
Yeah. Guess that the gas really enhanced it enough where he didn't need that. Just rub his fucking dick on his pants. That whole scene though is very, I don't want to say off-putting, but it's just it's very it's abuse, obviously, because she's, at first it seems like she's not into it until she's trying to get this guy to hit her later.
Yeah.
But knowing that it's happening because he has her kid, is what's fucked up. And I'm like, man, it's just such a fucked up scene, but at the same time so weird that it doesn't, I don't know, it's a whole mixture of emotions, right? Like it's fucked up, it's gross, really weird, almost funny, right? The dialogue that he delivers, and the fact that, I wonder if there's outtakes where everyone starts laughing.
Apparently David Lynch would laugh during the shooting of the rape scene, and Isabella would ask like, why are you laughing? But then later on, years later, when she rewatched the movie, she would laugh. I guess just how it's presented. I don't know, or the awkwardness. But that part, it was definitely brave of her to play, especially like later in the movie when she shows up naked out in the front yard, which I guess came from a dream from David Lynch.
Yeah, that's the pacing of the movie is like a roller coaster, right? Like it never lets up. And I think it's funny. The song they use, Blue Velvet, is very slow and like almost dreamlike. And the same thing with In Dreams, the Roy Orbison song they use.
Dean Stockwell, when he sings it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're so suave. You're so, the way you kept talking to him. All that dialogue is really weird too. I thought they were going to kiss at some point.
Yeah.
And the way they got real close, and again, that I imagine there was outtakes because of Dennis Hopper's, some of the lines that he delivers, they seem like they would be in a comedy movie.
Yeah.
if you just heard them stand alone. Um, and I wonder almost like, what was the deal with the Heineken? Like did David Lynch just discover Heineken? And so he was like, you know what? I'm going to talk about Heineken in this movie. Like that whole scene where he's with her and he's like, oh, Heineken, have you ever had it? She's like, no, I don't think I have. And he's like, oh, and like it's so strange and almost seems out of place. Like it's a commercial, right? Like they put like a plug. Although
Dennis Hopper's pushing Pabst Blue Ribbon at the end.
Exactly. I think a lot of people, hipsters, right? Hipsters love Pabst Blue Ribbon, and I think they drink it maybe because of that movie.
The Blue Velvet.
Yeah, because Pabst Blue Ribbon fucking sucks. It's terrible. It's slightly better than like Natural Light or Steel Reserve, and that's it. Yeah, it's such a strange. I don't know, like all those scenes where they're drinking, and it's, you know, they go to that party, and everything is uncomfortable. I've been to places like that. You know what it felt like? I don't know if you ever went to. I'm not going to use anyone's name, but the big guy who was a manager at our club for a while, his house, he used to have parties at his house all the time. I don't know if you ever went to any of those.
I don't remember.
After hours, I think you were working day shift at that point. So every night, any night of the week, he was living with the DJ from another club and another guy that worked there. We'd go to their house sometimes, and it was like, oh, fucked up. It was so fucked up.
No, that whole segment reminded me though, like when I was in my 20s and you're staying up all night.
The bong is over here, may or not be laced with cocaine also. Here's all the alcohol, like, and yeah, you don't know any of these people. I know like 3 people there. And you like go to talk to the person next to you, and like they're making out with someone you've never met before, and you're like, oh, all right. You look over here, and then like the other 2 people you know are making out with one another, and you're like, ooh, all right, that's weird. And then you're just sitting on the couch in between all this weird shit happening. So
he definitely nailed that like feeling, I think, in that segment.
Yeah, I feel like he probably spent a lot of time with people like that. Like he had to, right? There's no way you would kind of nail that whole vibe without a lot of experience being around it.
Robert Loggia, the guy we were talking about, Mr. Eddie, and Willem Dafoe, they tried out for the part of Frank Booth, but Lynch said he had already casted Dennis Hopper. I really can't see anyone else playing that part.
Yeah, for sure. Even, I mean, I like both of those guys, but
yeah,
I can't picture Dennis Hopper not being that character. But yeah, like again, that character, I would love to see those 2 characters. Like anyone watches this that does AI stuff, like watch those movies, do the characters. I want to see like an interaction with them. I would pay money to watch that.
I wish Dennis Hopper had played villains a bit more. I only kind of remember him in Speed as the villain. I don't know what else. And then
he's played King Koopa in the Mario Brothers.
Oh movie. Yeah, that's right.
That's his greatest film ever, where he was a Koopa, like a descendant from lizards, right, or dinosaurs. That movie is so bad.
Apocalypse Now. He was the crazy photojournalist.
Yeah. I don't know if that would be considered a bad guy though in that movie.
No,
everyone's kind of a bad guy in that movie.
No, yeah.
But yeah, that character, it's surprising to me that more people don't know that character, right? Robert Loggia played a bad guy in everything. He was an especially good bad guy and very menacing, right? Like driving that guy off the road and then bashing him up and then going back immediately. Like I've known a lot of bad people and that is for sure something they like to do.
Yeah.
Just subtly try to threaten you without threatening you, to let you know that they're bad guys. But yeah, those are.
Can you imagine the audience back then? I think this movie came out in 1986. Like how it hit them, especially this.
I can see people leaving the theater.
Yeah,
for sure, on both of those movies, because they would be very upsetting for anybody to sit and watch. Right? You're just. And I didn't get to see either of those movies in a theater, but I think, like you got people sitting behind you and you're in this dark room with a whole bunch of people you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And then trying to imagine watching either of those films in a large, dark, cold room surrounded by people you don't know.
Especially when Dennis Hopper shows up at the apartment and the things just go downhill.
Yeah, and like even in both the movies, like when the guy's like, "I'm in your home right now, call me."
Yeah.
Like that's so the feeling of uneasiness, like, is so apparent on his face. And then you're starting to like wonder, like, all these fucking strangers, I'm surrounded by strangers and I'm not in my house. Like that's gotta fuck with people. And I wonder if there's probably something we lost by not ever seeing those in theaters, right? Maybe the atmosphere of being in a room full of strangers.
I don't think I've seen any of his movies in theaters, unfortunately. Now I think about it.
I did see Mulholland Drive in a theater when it was, I guess, re-released. The first time I saw it was not in a theater, but yeah, when I think about it, like just being in a room full of people that you don't know, that would make everything even more uneasy, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're walking out of the theater at night, like, and all these people are around. It seems extra fucking intense to experience that with all these people that you can't talk to them about it.
Yeah.
Right. So, it's very, I don't know, Lynchian. I don't know if that's a term. I feel like it should be.
Oh, definitely. I think it is.
But the experience of that seems like something he maybe intended, right?
Yeah.
This movie is intended to be seen in a theater with a whole bunch of people you don't fucking know. And the way I was saying earlier how his movies don't end like wrapped up with a little bow. And I guess Blue Velvet kind of did.
Yeah.
But they wrapped it up with a bow and just made it, again, just uneasy. Like, is this real? And it always feels like, I don't know, like he was dreaming the whole time, or was he in the process of dying? Because after they beat him up, everything seemed, they like sped up even, right? Like the craziness. And the shooting at the end was very almost
montage.
Anticlimactic. Yeah, like when he shoots him, and I thought, oh, that's it? Like that's how it ends? Like this character, this great character, just dies from getting shot. The guy who got shot, who's dead, basically standing, like that whole scene is like, man.
Oh yeah, I was like
walking into like something like that seems just fucked up, and he just kept putting himself in these situations. And in dreams, sometimes we put ourselves in those situations, and you wake up and you're like, I would never fucking do that.
Right? It took me a minute to realize what was happening too with the yellow man, or the police officer that was just standing there. It's like, what's going on? Why is he just standing? Oh, he has brain damage. Like,
yeah. I've heard of people dying standing up, actually, on a few people that have been, in my circle of people I know.
Yeah.
So it's very weird. And then when he he's all angry looking for him, and he shoots the guy 2 more times, and he drops. Like, he was just, that character was interesting because of how frantic he was.
Yeah.
Like, Robert Loggia's character was very calculated and very, very put together. Like, all of his thoughts, he was sharp. And Dennis Hopper's character is just unhinged, like absolutely fucking
Definitely
insane. So
someone used I read that someone used a frame of when he gets shot in the head for an album cover.
yeah, that sounds about right. There's a lot of scenes. I used to see kids wearing t-shirts in Austin, people my age, 20s and 19s, and wearing the t-shirt of him holding the mask in his face when the first time and it's like, and I'd see that, and then like some of them on the back of the shirt would like say "Let's fuck," and I don't know if that was a band, a local Austin band, or if someone was just making bootleg shirts. Either one is likely.
I know it's been used for memes too. It's like give me more of that, or someone posted give me more sad music,
Yeah, it was a good trip to watch both of those movies again, being sober.
Brad
Circle.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention Brad Dourif is in the Blue Velvet as part of Dennis Hopper's gang. He's like super young, Brad Dourif.
Oh, I didn't even pay attention to it. I must just missed over it.
Yeah, he's when they go to that house with all the whole dialogue with the Heineken and Pabst Blue Ribbon. He's part of Frank's squad. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that whole thing is odd. But all the characters, the thing that was really strange also is Lost Highway felt like the placement of it could be the 50s. But it wasn't. It was modern times. And then Blue Velvet was set, like, I guess in the 50s, right? Based on the cars, but it didn't feel like the 50s. It felt like it was more modern to me. I guess with the inhaling the gas and everything, and then the Heineken and Pabst Blue Ribbon, like that movie felt like modern setting, but it was set like in the 50s. And then so they had opposite feels to me.
And I guess the obvious theme of Blue Velvet is just, despite the surface of things, of like the suburban nice neighborhood and everything's normal, it's like you got all the creepy crawly stuff happening underneath, or the underbelly.
Yeah. That's very realistic. People think there's not weird shit going on, but
there's weird shit going on everywhere.
Always weird shit going on.